Will Willy Adames be the Brewers opening day shortstop? You hear rumblings that they're going to trade him, and this team and that team wants him, but he's a Milwaukee Brewer as we've turned the calendar. We'll get into that. Tyler Koerth from WisSportsHeroics.com joins us and reviewing the Brew. We'll dive into it with him, among other things, Brewers offseason. That's coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Here in Wisconsin, then to talk Brewers baseball about our favorite team, although some might say it's been a disappointing winter so far. We'll get into that as Tyler Koerth will join us here in a second. This show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Score early in the NFL season with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. $150 if your team wins. FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. Good to get in. Tyler Koerth, have a touch base with him in a couple of months, reviewing the Brew and WisSportsHeroics.com. Write some good stuff. Tyler, hope you're enjoying your winter. Like I said, man, winter, bad outside, snowmageddon, or whatever they want to call it. But we're talking Brewer baseball here tonight.
Yeah, it's good to have me on the show again. I'm glad to be here. The winter season's picking up, like you said, so maybe the Brewers off season will now too. Maybe there's a correlation there. We'll see.
Before we get into the shortstop, are you disappointed in the off season so far?
I wouldn't say disappointed. It's definitely been slow. I think if it would end how it is right now, I would be disappointed, but I think they got at least one more move coming.
If the off season ended today, and opening day was tomorrow, how many wins would you give the Brewers? 70?
I'm more optimistic than that. You know that. I wouldn't give them 70 wins. We're going higher. I think I'd put them kind of that 84, 85, slightly above 500 range.
I just think there's going to be some regression with the pitching staff. I know Woodruff, and they didn't have him a lot last year, but the pitching staff was so good. Can they repeat those numbers, especially at bullpen once again?
I think that's a lot of people aren't talking a lot about that. Like you have your first three starters and then kind of 4 through 6 is kind of like, yeah, you're going to get contributions from players like Colin Ray. How much do you trust him? Will Aaron Ashby come back? But then I think what kind of swings me is you got this next wave of pitchers coming up, like Robert Gasser, Carlos Rodriguez, Mizorowski, I think they want him to stick as a starter. So I think you're going to see more than just the kind of presumed 6 starters right now. You're going to see more of the youth incorporated. And, if they hit, then that's great. But if they kind of struggle like most kind of rookie pitchers do first year in Major League Baseball, then the wins could go down a little bit.
Tyler Koerth joining us tonight as our guest. I didn't even introduce myself tonight. Chuck Freeman. I introduced Tyler 3 times, but I didn't say who I was. Chuck Freeman, from longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin, first-year host, going on my second year of Locked On Brewers. It is great to be here. And find me on Twitter at Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. Tyler at Tyler, KOERTH, Tyler Koerth. Find him and find whatever he's tweeting about these days, which includes the Brewers are long shots to win the National League. He's got the Vegas. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. Off the top here, let's get to the shortstop position. I mentioned this. The Dodgers, you heard the Giants for a little bit of this offseason might be interested. But is Willie going to be back at shortstop for the Brewers?
If I was betting on it, I would say Willie's going to be back opening day to be the shortstop. I know that's the latest reports are indicating that the plan is to start him there, reevaluate at the All-Star break. To me, that's always kind of been the smart plan, unless a great package comes up, which, we're starting to see some more top free agents sign. Usually the Dodgers are taking them all these days. So maybe, the trade market for Willy Adames will heat up a little bit, but I think at this point, the Brewers are kind of set on, we're going to be competitive. We're going to try and go for the division again. If it doesn't pan out, they should still be able to get a decent haul in return for Willy Adames, even though it'll only be a couple months that another team would get him if it would come to that point. But I think the Brewers are going to be competitive. They're going to be able to hang around, be buyers at the trade deadline again, and Willy Adames is going to see this thing out.
When I hear $150 to $200 million for a potential contract for Willy Adames, come on.
Yeah, I don't think the Brewers are paying that. That's for sure. Which also brings up the next question of, are you going to let Willy Adames and Corbin Burnes both play out this year and walk and get nothing in return? I see why that frustrates fans and gets them angry. But at the same time, you have to think like you got to get a good enough return where you can hopefully still be competitive this year.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you could look at like building up, the next wave of prospects, but I think Milwaukee has done a good job of kind of making sure they want to stay competitive every year. So I don't think trading Willy Adames for a couple 18-year-olds is the way that they would do it. They'd want to get something significant in return, and that's why a package or a trade hasn't been done yet.
Well, you know what it is when Adames struggles, and he didn't have a great year last year, or if Burnes has a bad outing, Twitter wants Burnes out of here immediately. But then on the other hand, if they traded Burnes, the Brewers don't want to be competitive. Cheap Mark Attanasio. That same guy who wanted to get rid of Burnes after giving up 2 dingers now wants to keep him and calls Attanasio cheap.
It's tough to be an owner in this league or a president of baseball operations. That's for sure. You can't win no matter what you do. But I think, with the Brewers, the bottom line is Willy Adames really is one of the premier shortstops in the league. He's known for his power. He's been one of the best in that department since coming to Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. Sure, the batting average has dipped. The on-base percentage, not great either. His run production went down a little bit by WRC plus standards. He was below an average hitter last year, but he plays really great defense. I think people don't fully appreciate that all the time. Metrics say he's really freaking good. And I think the problem is it's not a Willy Adames problem. It's just you can't have him as your 2, your 3 hitter in a lineup. You got to get him some more support in there. To say you consistently want, someone doing like Corey Seager production, what he does playing shortstop, it's unfair to expect that from most players, including Willy Adames. So, if they find a way to, make him the 5 hitter, I think that'd be awesome. And you're getting 20 to 30 home runs out of him.
I feel like the Brewers have had history to that. Putting guys like in the heart of the order who really don't belong there. Like there would be times like Jonathan Lucroy out of necessity would be the cleanup hitter on this team. He's not a cleanup hitter. And same with Adames. You make a good point. Adames is not, he's not, when he's going good, he's not a cleanup hitter, even though he's just a guy. And even like Yelich should be a heart of the order, but they move him to the top. But I feel like this whole lineup is kind of messed up because Christian Yelich isn't doing his job. I mean, okay, he had a little bit of a bounce back season last year, but if he was Christian Yelich, the Christian Yelich we signed up for, we wouldn't have to juggle the lineup as much this past year.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, that's a good point. They signed him to that extension when he was winning MVP, hit 40 whatever home runs the following year, should have won MVP the 2019 season. And now he's, a leadoff hitter, which is, he's still bounced back, which is great. But like you said, kind of creates a problem because you're expecting him to be that 100 RBI guy every year. So that does create a little conundrum. So I think between kind of that lineup construction will be different this year because now we got a different guy submitting a lineup card. How's Pat Murphy going to kind of go about his business? We assume he's going to operate similar to Craig Counsell, which, for a while there, I was giving the veteran guys a shot. It's always, next man up mentality. I think kind of Counsell found a good enough blend of those two. Towards the end of his Brewers tenure, it wasn't we're keeping Travis Shaw in the lineup to the All-Star break when he's struggling. He's like, okay, next man up, Andrew Monasterio comes up. We see what he does. So I think Pat Murphy's going to kind of keep the next man up approach, but that doesn't really solve, who's your star in the middle of the lineup type of deal. But it will be interesting to see how lineups go, I think.
Yeah, we've just gotten used to Counsell's ways, but with Murphy, I'm interested in how long he goes with a starter, how he juggles the lineup, if he goes with the set lineup, because even though it appears that Counsell and him were attached by the hip, still every man is different, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have been together forever. Murphy came on in 2015. He had a little bit of managing experience with the Padres as an interim before that. He obviously coached at Notre Dame, coach Counsell at Notre Dame. So they're great friends. I'm sure they're probably still going to talk during the season, which will be kind of weird. And they should probably keep that low key so fans will get mad about it. But it's going to be, he describes it as, I'm an offensive lineman just trying to create holes for these guys, which is a good way to look at it as a manager. But it's going to be a different way. It's going to be his way, setting things up and kind of constructing things.
Tyler, hang on right there. Got to go to a quick commercial break. Chuck Friedman here, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. The show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. And a great time to get on all the plays. College basketball is rolling. Got the NFL playoffs coming up. All these games coming up this weekend, Saturday through Monday, NHL, NBA. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. You just got to place this $5 bet, and it's all good. The app is so easy to use. Different ways. Same game parlays, live same game parlays, odds, over and unders, live teasers, prop bets, all there. You can play parlays, whatever you want to do. FanDuel.com/locked-on to make your first bet a layup. Again, when you place a $5 bet, $150 in bonus bets. They're America's number one sportsbook for a reason, because they offer a wide variety of things to go down now. There's stuff overseas on there, everything. Get it at FanDuel. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook, the official partner of the NFL. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on, LOCKEDON. Make your first bet a layup. This is Chuck Friedman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you all everydayers for joining us every day here on Locked On Brewers. We'll get back to Tyler here in a little bit and talk to him about, are we good with Turang at shortstop if Adames is traded? And for that matter, are we good with Turang playing second base going forward as our guy? We'll get into that. We'll see what Tyler's got to say coming up next. Our podcast, you find us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. Go to YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, our growing YouTube channel. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. And of course, all you everydayers, I see you on Twitter. I see you messaging me on our YouTube pages. Continue with that. I read them all every morning when I get up. And I see some of you guys tweet at me every day, which is great. I love your opinions on Brewers baseball. Chuck Friedman, FREIMUND. We're coming right back here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Friedman, your host. Tyler Koerth joining us from Locked On Brewers. I'm from Locked On Brewers. He's from Reviewing the Brew, and he's also from WISportsHeroics.com, two websites that he writes for. He writes a lot of Brewers content on it, and we, of course, we're friends with the guys in Reviewing the Brew. They're all good writers. Tell me what you think about Bryce Turang. There's an upside there. Defensively, he's A++. Can he get better offensively, though? Because they're going to have to need that. This isn't 1977 where your second baseman can hit 240 anymore.
Yeah, that is the big question of the offseason with Bryce Turang, because like you said, A++ defensively, and you kind of hinted at it earlier. I do think if he would need to slide over to shortstop, should any trade happen, he's got the skill set, the arm, the range, the everything to handle an everyday shortstop position. Is just the offense. And a lot of people have pressed the panic button on him this offseason. I mean, if you're like me, the first thing you do when you start evaluating a player is you go to Baseball Savant and you go, oof, when you cringe at it. It's just all blue. It's all, he never hit the barrel. He didn't hit it hard. You see some good metrics in the fact that he made contact, whether he was swinging in the zone or out of the zone. So like he doesn't strike out. Hey, that's great. But if you're not hitting it hard, that can lead to some issues. So when I started looking at it a little bit further, I was like, okay, well, is he just hitting it weak on the ground? He had a ground ball percentage of 42% last year, so not bad. It's not like he's just grounding out every time. Fly balls, 25%, line drives, 24%. The problem is when you're just making weak contact, guys got more time to react. You're an easier out, essentially, even with all of his speed. So I think obviously the way he went offensively, he wasn't able to utilize his skill set to his advantage at the plate. Whether that's seeing major league pitching for, really the first time for an entire season, that probably has a lot to do with it. Fastballs are faster. Breaking balls are commanded a lot better. He didn't hit any of them great at all. So I think a lot of it will be just how much he's able to make those adjustments on even in-game scenarios next year, because that's something that you don't necessarily have to do a lot in the minor leagues. Players are used to having success. So I think year 2, I think we're going to see definitely his stock go up, and I think fans are going to be a lot happier with him. Is he going to be a big power hitting second baseman? No, but I think he can be an average guy, and he definitely has got 30 stolen base potential. So there's a lot of value there.
The one thing about Turang is he went down to the minors, but I feel like he came back. He adjusted a few things, but there wasn't much of a change in production-wise for him. And again, young player, I know, first year getting used to things, but I just hope he takes he needs to take that jump if he's going to be the everyday second baseman going forward.
I agree, absolutely. I mean, his freshman year did not go to plan, that's for sure. So next year, you can't say he's in a sophomore slump or use any of those traditional kind of phrases. It's going to be, hey, this is kind of it's an important year, really, because we used an option last year. If we have to use another option again, he's only got one more option year left of that. And then you're kind of really starting to think like, hey, what do we do? And what really is this guy's ceiling going forward? So how he does next year, it's a big year for him, and kind of, how the Brewers are going to, look at him going forward. Is he someone that they view as expendable, or is it someone that they think they can keep around, throughout all of his pre-arbitration years and into the arbitration part of his contract as well?
I guess Monasterio would be the backup plan at second base, assuming he's not the opening day third baseman. And the way we're going, he might be the opening day third baseman.
Yeah, that second third base is definitely that's where your biggest kind of hole is, really third base. I mean, I think Turang gets a good shot at second base to start the year, but Monasterio obviously can handle it well. I really like Oliver Dunn. I know a lot of people aren't real excited about how the Brewers gave up 2 top 30 prospects to trade for him. Hasn't made his major league debut yet, but he really broke out last year. Saw a big increase in the power numbers, 21 homers, I think it was last year. He was like a standout in the Arizona Fall League, which typically has a track record of, players going on and doing well in the major leagues. It's really about, creating positive momentum, having that confidence as a baseball player. And to me, Oliver Dunn has all those things going in the right direction right now. So I think if he gets hot, he could be a significant contributor next year. Second base or third base, he can play both. So
you talked about the Brewers have one more move in their hip pocket. And that better be a major one if they only have one more move left. That better be just one heck of a move they got in their back pocket, Tyler, if they only have one move left.
Yeah, I obviously have no idea what they're going to do, but I expect at least one more move, whether it's acquiring a right-handed hitting first baseman, someone to platoon potentially with Jake Bauers, or it's finding someone that you can say, hey, you're an everyday third baseman going into the year. Whether that comes through free agency, comes through trade, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't think they're going to go free agency route. We'd all love to see them, if we're talking first and third base, we'd love to see them spend the money, go like Rhys Hoskins. I think they're going to get outbid in that war. Third base, you could look to trade there. I mean, obviously, Brewers trades an offseason ago, like William Contreras, Joel Payam, saw that came a lot earlier in the offseason. Brewers' work this year, I think, it's starting late because the market is very slow. So, there's 5-6 weeks before spring training, but trades can still happen after that. I think they got something up their sleeve that they're working on, is my hope anyway.
I hope you're right. The Brewers got a big hole over at first and third base going into spring training a month from now. We'll get Tyler's thought on that. If either one will get fixed, hopefully at least when I think going into opening day, we're not going to be happy about one of the positions. We'll also ask Tyler if he thinks that Carlos Santana, heard those rumors Friday afternoon that, putting the tea leaves together, Carlos Santana might be back with the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll get to that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode 3 times a week during the winter here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And spring training opens up 5 weeks. Gosh, man, it is coming on soon. We'll come right back after this timeout here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, Tyler Koerth from Reviewing the Brew and WithSportsHeroics.com joining us right now. Yeah, you heard the rumblings about Santana. I don't know. I'm not this. Having Santana back would signal to me that nothing else is changing with the first base spot. They had no other plans. Any plans they had to get on the first baseman fell through, and he's plan B or plan C even maybe.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to look at it, and how I would too. The good news is Carlos Santana at least has a good reputation here in Milwaukee. I think everybody liked him. He plays a good defense, was a Gold Glove finalist last year. The fans really took to him well. He created that infield dance that we kind of saw them doing last year. It seemed like he really brought the team together on the field, in the clubhouse. Yeah. So, I think there's definitely a lot of value in bringing him back. I kind of mentioned or hinted at Rhys Hoskins earlier. He's obviously the top free agent at first base, still available. There's also guys like Joey Gallo, Gio Urshela, CJ Cron, Carlos Santana. He's kind of in with those guys, that upper echelon of the first base free agents. So there could still be a high bidding war for some of these guys if you think about it. I mean, Carlos Santana only made, I think it was like $6.5 million next year, and he could get closer to double digits, maybe 8-10 would be my guess. A team would be willing to pay for him. And if this is the Brewers' plan B or C, the question is, are they going to pay that much for him? I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith that they would if it ends up getting that high.
Tyler, our friend David Gasper wrote the other day about Tampa and Harold Ramirez, that he might be on the trading block. 2 years of control, not a lot of power, but a guy who can hit a little bit and get on base. Doesn't strike out a lot either.
Yeah, it sounds right up the Brewers' alley. And the Brewers have a history of trading with the Rays as well too. So like in your mind, you automatically just start getting excited for a guy like Harold Ramirez. We were talking earlier, is 300 hitter. Like anytime a team openly makes someone like him available, it's like, yeah, you should probably go out and see what the cost to acquire him is. And he's hit 300 2 years in a row. So even though there isn't much power there, he still finds ways to contribute. 68 RBIs last year, 460 slugging. So I guess the biggest question is, the Rays are probably going to find a way to win that trade, and they know our prospects, know our system well. So they're going to want some of our top guys and guys that we don't want to give up. And we've already parted ways with some of them this offseason. So it's kind of a balancing act of if you go in and find out the Rays price, do you want to keep trading from a position of strength in our farm system right now, which we've done this offseason for maybe guys that haven't necessarily moved the needle a whole lot, but Harold Ramirez was. Do you want to keep going down that path, or are you going to look somewhere else? To me, I'd love to see him do Harold Ramirez, but I don't think it's going to get done. I think it's kind of a pipe dream for us, and I think the Rays are just really trying to gauge his interest early, because they'll trade him eventually, but it probably won't be this offseason. I
think they're probably trading him because he doesn't have a lot of power. If he had power, everybody would want him. They wouldn't be trading him. And that's my problem with bringing him to Milwaukee. I just love to have a power hitting first baseman. I want a guy at first base who could hit me. He had 13 homers, I believe, last year. Might have been a season high. But I just wanted some power over at first base.
Yeah, 12 home runs. Close. That was a career high for him, though, last year. And I agree. Jake Bauers hitting from the left side brings some power. But you need someone from the right-hand side. We mentioned Carlos Santana already. Obviously, he's a switch hitter. He's I think I was looking up his baseball reference page the other day, 18 home runs, in the last 10 years that he's been in the league. That's the lowest he's hit over an entire season. So, you can hopefully peg, if we end up going the Carlos Santana route, 20 home runs. Is that a power hitter? Not necessarily, but it's definitely stability there. Just the problem is these power hitting first basemen, there's a high asking price for them because everybody wants them. And, Pete Alonso is obviously the most sought after in the trade market, which probably is not going to happen either. But yeah, the Brewers lacked power last year, and they have just a plethora of guys who make contact, get on, when they get on base, they can steal, but they don't have, like we talked about to start the show, that star potential, someone to knock them all in with one swing of the bat. They are missing.
That is the thing that is missing on this year. That star we thought it would be Christian Yelich, but he's not him anymore. So they need that guy. I think they need that hitter, whether it's from within or from outside. I think they need that guy in the middle of that lineup who could do damage, not a Willy Adames. I mean, they need Willie, but Willie's not that guy. That's not the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like you said, Willie Adames can come up clutch for you. He's got a history of doing that. But yeah, he can't be your 3-4 hitter hoping he's going to get 100 RBIs. That's just not his game. Does it come within? That's a good question that you just made me start thinking about, especially when you're kind of looking at first and third base prospects. Obviously, we haven't touched Tyler Black somehow. Talking about third base today. He's obviously not a home run hitting.
I asked Jasper about him the other day, so I figured to ask you a few more different things.
I like Tyler Black, but not going to be your power source. That's for sure. You're looking kind of on the farm. The first name that really comes to my mind is, our first round draft pick from last year. Does Brock Wilken become someone like that? He's got some power in there. I would like to think so. He could certainly advance through the minors rather quickly, experienced college bat. I don't think you'd see him in 2024, maybe 2025 at best. But I don't think they kind of drafted him saying he's going to become a star, but who knows? The Brewers have been doing a better job of getting some hitters in the draft, especially college bats, but they haven't found that power source yet. And Wilken is, in recent memory, kind of one of those first guys that maybe could be it, but we'll see.
Well, I gave you an idea for a next article for you in the Brew or WISP sportsheroics.com. How about that? sportsheroics.com. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. I know you're busy and, taking time out here on a cold winter's night, snowy winter's night in Wisconsin. Tyler Koerth, find him online on Twitter on Tyler, let's do this again. Tyler, Koerth. Tyler, Koerk. I am botching this up. Tyler, you say it. You know why? Because I don't have my glasses on. I'm trying to do it off memory. Go ahead. You tell me.
You can find me on Twitter at Tyler Koerth, Koerth, and then both the writing channels, like you said, Wisconsin Sports Heroics reviewing the Brew.
Tyler Koerth joining us here on Review Locked On Brewers. Good to have him aboard. This is Chuck Freeman. We were not strong to the finish on Locked On Brewers, and that was not because of his fault. That was on your boy Freeman here. That's going to do it for the show today. My name is Chuck Freeman. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, Google, Spotify, Apple. Get us on all the platforms. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode. So long, everybody.